Deloitte India, joining us this afternoon. Manish, great having you. Let me set the context first off. By the way, viewers, this is a larger conversation with regard to infrastructure and what spend we can expect from the budget and what changes should happen at a ground level to ensure that the spend that India is making actually lands up transmitting the way one wants to in the most efficient fashion. Okay, Manish, let me start off. Talk to us about the biggest gaps you see today between policy intent and actual private capital participation.
I would say that, look, the policy intent has been great. From intent to execution, there has been a lot of a movement, I would say. Having said that, I mean, I still see the private sector participation could have been much higher, which I believe is not to the extent of some of the areas that I highlighted. For example, I mean, you have still delays in terms of your claims, your settlement of some of these dues from the various government departments, some of the issues on the regulatory side, which takes a long time to close out. So on the ground, you see that from a private sector investment standpoint, if you have some of these delays in some of the project related issues and the concession related issues, I think that gives a little bit of a lesser comfort for me to keep spending more. That's one. Second, I think the government has done a great job in opening up many avenues for capital raise. So whether it is InvITs, whether it is capital markets or beyond, we have a private credit. For example, they recently allowed acquisition financing for M&A, which has been a great step, and we have been talking about this for last many years. So I think a lot of policy announcements which are very positive. I think I would like to see that some of these get off the ground very quickly. So for example, acquisition financing, how fast some of the top banks in India start doing that is, to my mind, my ask would be that there's a great intent, great policy announcements. How do we fast get them to the market?
Manish, roads and highways continue to dominate, especially where asset monetization is concerned. How can the government replicate this success in, say, for example, some of the other sectors, railways, power, and the like?
Absolutely true, and that's why I said that my second ask when you asked me about from expectation of a budget on a national monetization pipeline. My ask is that my expectation this time is that if you see the two sectors which has got the maximum traction within infrastructure from a capital standpoint and the asset monetization standpoint is roads and renewables. I would really want to see this traction on the transmission, on the railways, on the gas pipelines, on some of these logistics, for example. It's a pool of capital waiting and very high interest from some of the corridors, including Middle East and Japan, where our Prime Minister went. And there's a lot of intent there from investing into these sectors. Airports, it's a little bit of a sad that we have been talking about airport monetization and the privatization for a long period of time. The clusters of the airports, we are still waiting. So I think there are many sectors where I believe there is a long-term pool of capital which is waiting to happen. We can get a very, very competitive pricing as well. And I expect that if there is an announcement around the national monetization pipeline, some of these sectors, which has been a little bit of a sluggish in the first round, should get a more traction.
And Manish, with the 30,000 crore asset monetization target for FY26 likely to be met, what should be the next phase of monetization focus?
Look, I would expect that, I mean, any monetization pipeline that you're talking, and we are talking of, let's say, about 4 to 5 years, at least it will be, every year we can have at least a 50,000 odd crores. So 5 years, about 3 to 5 lakhs crore over the 4 years period can be a very, very good numbers to my mind, and the scale and the size. And mind you, I mean, we are talking of multiple sectors within infra. Infra is not just one sector. So we can do it in roads, airports, logistics, real estate, stadiums we talked about, gas pipelines we talked about. So there are multiple sectors, transmission we talked about. So I think from a from a number standpoint, I think that there's a huge pipe. I am expecting a large pipe to come in if the announcement were to be made. I feel that some of the sectors should get more traction than some sectors which are already on an autopilot basis. Even if the government does something or not, power and renewables will keep, I mean, renewables and roads will keep getting that momentum. And I think one thing I would like to see is that this monetization is also about not just InvITs. It is beyond that as well, so that there's a private sector participation in bringing efficiencies, in bringing technology. See, I think one thing we have to remember in infrastructure, especially whether it is digital or whether it's physical infrastructure, I think a lot of a technological embedding we can do to make it more efficient. And I think that is where the private sector efficiencies come in, which can only happen if it is a non-InvIT kind of a structure. So I think a mix of both. Yes, sure, InvIT is a very good product. There's a demand for that, but we should also do the other side of a PPPs as well.
You also mentioned InvITs. How critical is a clear framework for at least mergers of InvITs? How important or material is that? And could Budget 2026 be that turning point?
I think so. I think just to step back, look at from a standpoint that so far over the last 3 4 years since when this entire product came to the market, and we have seen a lot of InvITs coming up. So the government has done a great job, to be honest with you, to get so many InvITs off the ground. So we are at a stage where the consolidation is one of the themes, where we are looking at different sectors kind of an InvIT we can play together. I can give you one example, which is a small but an important anomaly, is that, so for example, distribution is in the list of infrastructure projects where we can do an InvIT. The focus on the distribution by the government, and rightly so, the smart meter project and the program that the government has launched, it is very extremely important because ultimately it goes towards making distribution a very robust sector, reducing the losses, for example, increasing the cash flows to the utility. However, today I think there is an ambiguity in terms of whether can I do an InvIT for a smart meter. So I think if we can have some of these consolidation sort of a theme, some of these ambiguities that can get clarified, I think that will go a very, very long turning point to my mind to get more of these capital and the big ticket sizes to the sector.
And Manish, if you had to just pick one reform in Budget 2026 that could unlock the next wave of infra investments, what would that be?
I think I would really like to see urban infrastructure. If you ask me one thing which I'm very close, it may not be the boldest, but at least I feel that with all the movement towards the cities, all the movements and the things that the government has done to make aspirational districts, this entire urbanization thing, the industrial clusters we are talking about, here there's a lot of capital which can come in, long-term capital can come in, water, wastewater, industrial water, sewage. I mean, these are very, very important sectors, and we have seen some of the events folding around us that how important these are, and why can't we have a long-term capital coming into that? And therefore, I think the way the government did, I can give you a parallel why I'm very passionate about urban infrastructure. It's a very large sector. We have hardly seen very meaningful investments going into the sector. Like what government did when they took over 2014-15, the renewable, we are talking today of renewable as a baseline, roads as a baseline. But what changed the game? The game was changed when actually you got SECI into it, you got NVVN into it, your scale and size of the project changed, the counterparty risk you dealt with better in the structuring, and therefore we need same kind of a structure. You have a roads because of NHI, and therefore you need something like that to really have in an urban infrastructure a lot of a capital to come in. At a center, probably it is still something that moves. At a states, there is a lot of these potential to raise resources without compromising the fiscal discipline. I think there need to be an institutional structure to create confidence and the comfort in the pool of capital that can go towards states and urban infrastructure as well. So that is what my one topmost thing will be, which I would like to see in the budget.
Manish, thank you so much for coming in and speaking with us. This has been extremely productive. Also,